Hello, thank you so much for joining me on this first of my weekly video series. The video, well, I shouldn't say series, I just like to sort of keep this going as long as possible, so indefinite sort of term on this. It'll be every Sunday evening that I upload something. You may have seen sort of in some of the preceding notifications and sort of advertisement for this that has something to do with music and language arts. And so, is that pretty general? Yes. I'd like to just keep this keep this as a bit of a open format. Have this be a bit of an open format, so that I can continue to share kind of bits and pieces of my research, things I'm interested in most currently. So expect some performance material, some research material, and whatever goes along with that, be it history, theory, poetry, various sort of language arts, topics, grammar, foreign languages, whatever the case may be. Generally, this is going to have something to do with the music of the Iberian Peninsula, so Spain and Portugal, what is now Spain and Portugal. I believe Gibraltar is a very small territory of the United Kingdom. I'm not sure, but it's best known for Spain and Portugal these days. I'm looking at music for the guitar and its related instruments. That is my topic of interest, both historically and as a performer. Voice is incredibly important also. In fact, I generally prefer to mention that the voice has pride of place. Yes, so that's the more important, or more not more important, but more original, or more sort of authentic, almost musical sort of sound, musical instrument, if you want to call it that, right? So the voice as sort of the musical instrument that has begotten all others. All right, so that's just a bit of a general introduction. Today I'm going to play and be singing a bit also in an Indian classical style. Before I go into the specifics of any theory or sort of what to listen for, anything you might be interested in picking out as I play this and sing. So as far as it relates to the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, and the early generations of guitar music, music from India, well, there's a pretty strong relationship with the Islamic world. It's been noted in several places that both in philosophy and religion, as well as in music, there are very close relationships between what was brought into what is now Spain by the Muslims, and as well as clearly what was going on the Indian subcontinent. Yeah, so there's a clear migration, I guess, if you want to say, of musical ideas. There have also been certain, just kind of recap, as I say, religious and philosophical, spiritual ideas, practices, and so on. One interesting and I think notable idea is that this sort of literary style, right, or this sort of central theme in the creative consciousness of Renaissance Europe, courtly love. I believe it's called the fins amour in the French-inspired dialect, el amor fino, or el amor cortés, I believe it's called in the more Castilian-sounding tongue. But courtly love is how we know it in English. Well, so this is something that we define much of late medieval and early Renaissance literature by, and yet there's some pretty, if not entirely convincing due to lack of hard documentary evidence, then at least very intriguing scholarship that's looked at poetic traditions, the ancient Sanskrit poetic traditions, and then, of course, into the Arabic styles that were brought into Muslim Spain, into al-andalus, which I just learned yesterday. Has to do with that word al-andalus has to do with the Vandals, these I believe a tribe that was at least in some position of power on the Iberian Peninsula. So this is an Alaap, that implies no rhythm. Well, not no rhythm, but no pulse. So there's no evenly divided metric feel here. This is in traditional Indian classical music. This would be played first, followed by other sections that do have this this very clear pulse. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's interesting to note that Siryab, he was the famous, not fictional, I don't think, but definitely legendary or sort of historic oud player who came from, I believe, Baghdad to southern Spain, where the Muslims were in power at that time. Siryab was credited with beginning pieces with an unmeasured recitative. So as a vocalist, it would be a bit of a, as I mentioned, this sort of arrhythmic or ametric sound, very free in its timing, and really a bit of an esoteric or ethereal kind of sound. So perhaps that's a bit, a small tidbit to think about, that Siryab was playing unmeasured or unmetered, almost introductions to his compositions. This is something that's incredibly, I would say, unique to Indian classical music, but deserves mention in that it's revered. Yes, it's the symbolism is pretty deep. I would say it has to do with really recognizing the formless divinity, right? That which is formless and that which is clearly, as a result, a bit of perhaps a mystery. In any case, that which is formless, for lack of a better word, however you might describe it, but that's an important concept behind this style of music. Now, the raga is Hamasadhwani. That means the song of the swan. Now, it's a southern Indian or Carnatic raga that is also played in the north in the Hindustani tradition. Saraswati is often depicted riding on a swan, so perhaps there is a bit of a connection there in terms of sort of the name of this raga and where it might be tied to. Also, interestingly, I find in the doctoral dissertation, in the PhD, at least PhD, anyway, doctoral level dissertation of Jayanti Kumaresh. Dr. Jayanti Kumaresh, she plays the Saraswati Veena. The Saraswati Veena, the South Indian stringed instrument, Saraswati Veena. She's mentioned in her, she's written about in her PhD dissertation the fact that the constellations sort of bear out this name in a certain sense, and at least have potentially something to do with the idea, with the fact that the imagery of Saraswati riding on a swan or seated on a swan. Now, if you look at the constellation Cygnus, the swan, it's very near Lyra, which is a lyre, a harp type instrument. Now, I don't want to sort of propose anything further than that, but that might give you an idea of, not an idea of sort of one of the tendencies, but just sort of a potential line of research or sort of inquiry to make with regard to sort of the thinking behind this rag. This rag is generally used for worshipping Ganesh. It's often played at the beginning of a concert where you have sort of various rags being presented. This will be often the first. People say that it's an evening rag from about 6 to 8 p.m., but I find that may be potentially flexible, especially because in many sort of styles or sects or the branches of Hinduism, especially because in many of the Hindu practices, Ganesh is given a bit of again, the sort of pride of place. So one might argue that this rag is not strictly an evening rag. Conveniently here, I'm in this evening period, and so I'd like to share with you now a bit of a taster or just a demonstration of how Alaap might sound in Raga Hamasadhwani.
Thank you. I'll see you next week.